So the topic of contracts, if you've done business with a realtor before, you probably noticed that their contract looked very well set up, very established, and very professional, right? Very neat and organized, and had all the little clauses in it, and what do we do in this situation? What do we do in that situation? It's got it all covered, right? And that is um, basically a standardized contract from the state that you live in by their whatever state association of realtors basically has, that their board of realtors for that state comes up with a standardized contract for all realtors to use. That's why it looks very good and clean and professional. So if you're doing business with a real estate investor or wholesaler who's buying your house, their contract should look pretty professional and set up, like they've done this before. Does that make sense? If it looks like it's the first time they've ever used it, don't sign it, because it's probably not even a contract that's going to hold up in court. Contracts have to, show that considerations have been taken to protect both sides' interests, right? If I hand the judge, say I'm buying Betsy Sue's house for 200 grand, whatever, price isn't important, but we don't run into problems down the road. Judge calls me into court, takes a look at my contract and sees that it's very one-sided and only protects my interests, my company's interests, right? He would throw that out immediately. He'd just rip it up and throw it on the floor and be like, this contract is nonsense. This whole deal with you buying her house is down the drain. It's not official. This contract, you will not be able to buy her house with this contract. You need to present something that represents her interests as well, or you're just out here scamming people, is what he would tell me to my face. He or she, right? So if you're doing business with somebody, they send you a contract to buy your house, look it over. If it doesn't look right, say something. Like I said, it should be a clear, considerations for both sides represented well in that contract, written concisely and clearly with their business name, contact information, all that stuff. It's a pretty easy thing to get a contract going that you can use for just about any deal in the state, right? If it's a minus, creative financing contracts, those have a lot more involved. But for a cash close on a property that needs some TLC, it should be a pretty clear, not vague contract, right? So now again, if an investor or wholesaler is actually a professional and does this for a living, there shouldn't be really any questionability about the contract, because it will be professionally written, very neat and organized, filled out, typed on the computer and printed out, not handwritten or anything like that, unless they're just filling it out on the spot when they come to see your house. That's a different thing. But typically they're going to take that back to the office or home or wherever they work from and fill it out on a computer and send you, a copy that looks a little more professional, right? So again, make sure you're asking questions if things don't look right. Don't sign it if it doesn't look right and then wait for the judge to figure it out for you, or real estate attorneys or whatever. Sales contracts don't really go in front of the judge. They go to a real estate attorney or title company closing office, right? Depending on which state you live in. Like Alabama uses title companies, Georgia uses real estate attorney closing offices. So, the contract process, Betsy Sue calls John about buying her house. We go look at the house, agree on a price. I send her a contract. She fills it out, sends it back to me. I fill it out. I send that to my closing attorney, and if necessary, to my transaction coordinator, for them to keep track of and everything, so I can move on to other deals if we're busy. But typically, you know, it's not going to go in front of a judge unless there's some kind of a lawsuit originating, which I've never had a seller sue me, so that shouldn't be really an issue. But you know, the contract should, like I said, represent both sides' interests. It's going to go through a closing office or a title company to be looked at and reviewed anyway. If there's any problems, generally the closing attorneys are going to tell you, right? They're going to be like, hey man, this needs to be adjusted, need to have this in here for this reason or whatever. So we have professionals all over this stuff. You know, I've had them look my contracts over already, you know, give me the thumbs up. So I use a couple of different contracts for different circumstantial deals, but my contracts are the same. You know, the contract for a subject to deal is the same contract I sent to the last guy, and the last guy, you know, a contract for a cash deal is the same contract I sent to the last cash deal, and the last cash deal filled out the same way on the computer. Everything looks right, everything looks professional. You know, there's not much questioning what I have going on with my contract because I've done this before. So again, if you're dealing with somebody who sends you a contract and it doesn't look right, it might be their first time. You know, in most states, you don't have to have a real estate license to be an investor or a wholesaler and deal with real estate. So I don't have a real estate license. I am not a realtor. I am an investor and a wholesaler. So, you know, the wholesale side, I do nationwide. I'm going to be purchasing and selling very quickly. It's called a double close, or an assignment fee. If, you know, certain states have made laws saying, you know, you can't wholesale unless you have a real estate license, but there's still ways around it. It's not illegal, it's just kind of a workaround. It's called a double close, and